Greetings, welcome. Much thanks for joining me here. I'm grateful that we can spend these moments together here in this space. My name is Katyayani, and I have a lot I want to share with you that you're going to love. I keep putting off making videos and creating content, even though I have so much to share that can help so many people. But I haven't had the time and energy to put together the visual presentation that I would like you to see. So for now, I'm going to present all I have as audio. And when the time is right, I'll have a beautiful visual presentation ready for you. So as I said, I'm Katyayani. I'm the founder and creator of The Strong Foundation. And truly, Jah has given me so many things to give to the world. I have many things that I do and offer. So I'm going to introduce those here to you today. And then I'm going to do my best to keep sharing knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and all kinds of information that can help you and your community and your family and everyone you love build a strong foundation for your future, for our future, through the restoration of soul, environment, body, community, and family. We're here to build a strong foundation for our future. Everything built on sand will wash away. We have to build our foundation for our future on solid ground. And we do that by working with nature. You cannot override the laws of nature. You can manipulate nature for a time, but there's always a price to pay. Nature, natural law, is always what stands. Just like all lies have an expiration date, but truth lasts forever. These are natural principles that are unchanged and unchangeable. Just like fire burns and produces heat, ice is cold and freezes. These are natural principles. And with the knowledge and understanding of the natural principles that have to do with how our own natures work and how our natures work as a community when we interact together, fire and ice produces a certain result when it interacts. And just like that, all of our interactions, all of the choices we make, even down to the thoughts we have inside our own minds, every single thing produces a result. And if we want to build a strong foundation for our future, for a happy, prosperous, healthy future for ourselves and everyone we love, then we need to cultivate the energy and the consciousness so that we can see clearly enough what the consequences of the actions we choose now are going to be in the future, so we can choose to do the actions that we want to do now in order to produce the results we want in the future. And for that, we need both energy and consciousness. They go hand in hand. Without energy, we cannot have the power to have the consciousness. Without consciousness, we cannot make the choices that lead to being able to generate more energy. So these are the principles behind on which the strong foundation is built. And I invite you to come with me on this journey into the future on a strong foundation where we can all live happy, prosperous, and free. So this being an introductory video, I am going to share with you all of the offerings I currently offer through the Strong Foundation. I have both nonprofit and for-profit offerings. So I invite you to listen and hear about all I have to share, all of these unique things that you can either be a part of or utilize for your own benefit and the benefit of those you love. First of all, my most important endeavor is a not-for-profit one. Shiv Shakti Yoga, meditation on the inner light and sound current. I have been appointed as an authorized pracharak for Shri Shri 1008 Ma Mandaleshwar Ma Adi Shakti Satgiri Ji Maharaj. I give meditation instruction for free to anyone who would like to learn the meditation on the inner light and sound current, and I host a weekly meditation group virtually online via Zoom, so you can join us from anywhere on the planet every Sunday. And at times I also give public talks to get to share information to anyone who would like to learn more. And I'm always available to speak privately with you if you're interested in learning more about meditation on the inner light and sound current and Shiv Shakti Yoga. You can learn more about this on my website at thestrongfoundation.com/Shiv Shakti Yoga. SHIVSHAKTIYOGA. Shiv Shakti Yoga. So I have been meditating since 2004. I was first initiated by Sant Takar Singh and Surat Shabd Yoga, meditation on the inner light and sound. And then in 2014, I was initiated by Guru Ma Adi Shakti. And in 2016, she gave me the name Katyayani, which is named after the goddess of love, a warrior goddess who was created by the combined powers of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva when a huge devil named Mahashashura was destroying the three worlds, the physical, astral, celestial realms. And no one could stop him, not Brahma, not Shiva, not Vishnu. And so they combined their powers of creation, sustenance, and transformation and created Katyayani. Katyayani sought out Mahashashura and destroyed him, and the three worlds were saved. That's the short story. So she's called the goddess of love because she's also a goddess that people have prayed to for millennia for a happy and peaceful marriage life and a good life partner. And that's actually interesting that that's connected to some of the works that I do, which I'll be sharing here shortly, in conscious relationship building, which I started creating long before Ma gave me that name. So she's able to really see who we really are and give us so much information to help us on our paths. I'm so grateful to Guru Ma. So that's the goddess I'm named after. And in 2018, Guru Ma asked me to become a pracharak and to start giving people meditation instruction. And of course, how could I say no? I'm so grateful to be a part of this and to be able to work for God and help people get connected to the inner light and sound current, which just changes everything in your life, to put it shortly. If you would ever like any more information, feel free to get in touch with me through my website, thestrongfoundation.com. So another endeavor that is also extremely important, everything I do is extremely important, of course. It's very important to me, and I'm grateful to bring it to you. And I want more and more to be able to get more of it out in the world and be able to help more and more people. And this work is something I refer to as flora-consciousness, which is microbiome health education, especially natural health education, all centered on microbiome health. I have so much knowledge and so many resources to share. Microbiome health is the root of all health. I always say, no matter how health conscious you are in this day and age, if you're not flora conscious, then it's all for naught. And in case you haven't heard, science only in the last probably 15 years, let's say mainstream science, because a lot of us knew about it long before that. I started learning about this in the 90s, and I started learning from other people who had conquered microbiome-related health issues that knew about it long before that. But finally, here in mainstream medicine, they're finally catching up and starting to learn about it. It's not just the natural holistic community anymore. And so about the last 15 years, they've been doing a lot of studies, and now there's microbiome research departments in a lot of the universities like UCSF, UC Davis, and all over. But what I've found is a lot of the time, they're basically just researching to try to figure out what are all the different types of bacteria that we have in our bodies, because this is where this science stems from. The fact that we have a microbiome that we live in a symbiotic relationship with that is a huge part of our immune system. And we never used to, I guess, notice it before. It's only been like the early last century since we developed microscopes. But we never used to have synthetics and things like we do now that just destroy our microbiome. And when our microbiome is destroyed, which is made up of trillions of cells of good bacteria, beneficial bacteria that we live in a symbiotic relationship with. I have read some reports that say that we have 10 times as many other cells of other organisms in our body, these microbes, than we do our own cells. And we've already got trillions of our own cells. The thing is, though, that those microbial cells are smaller than our cells. So they make up about maybe 2 to 3 pounds of our body's weight. So they line not only our guts and our intestinal tracts, but pretty much every surface inside and outside of our body, whether it's our skin, our mucous membranes in our nose and lungs, our mouth, everywhere has a microbiome. And this is like a healthy garden, just like the earth has its trees and flora and fauna. It's supposed to be that way, and it's beautiful and healthy and vibrant. However, just like if you go and you pour chemical pesticides on the land, it's going to destroy all the flora and fauna and insects, and if there's enough, even the trees. When we have synthetics poured into and onto our body, it destroys our microbiome. And there are so many microbes in our environment, including some in our bodies that aren't really there on large levels normally when we have a healthy microbiome. But when the good bacteria gets destroyed, it's not just a sterile environment. Other microbes come and grow in its place. And it's microbes that hurt us, that we do not want in our bodies. It's like briars or, thorny weeds that are hurting everything, or sucking the life out of the land that grows in the place of a healthy microbiome. So synthetics, like a lot of pharmaceuticals and the chemical so-called body care products, chemical detergents, perfumes, all these types of synthetics, were created very recently by humans, manipulating nature, not working with nature. Our bodies have not evolved with these chemicals over millennia like they have natural things. And neither have the bacteria that we live in a symbiotic relationship with in our bodies. So when our bodies and this bacteria come in contact with these new synthetics, it just destroys them. And that's when other microbes, most commonly types of fungi like Candida, which is already normally in our bodies on a ratio of 1 Candida or yeast cell per 1 million good bacteria cells. But when those good bacteria cells get killed, the yeast just grows out of control because it can. And then people get exposed to mold in their environment, and boom, there's no good bacteria, or not enough good bacteria to keep that mold from growing there. So people will actually get mold growing in their bodies just from a little bit of exposure. It didn't used to be like that. I remember hearing stories in school when I was in like the 4th, 5th grade about early settlers and the kinds of homes that early settlers would build here in America comes to mind. And they would literally build their homes into the side of hills to where their walls were made out of soil, which is like made out of mold. And people didn't die and get as sick as they do now just from getting a little bit of mold in their walls that they a lot of times can't even see, but it's there and it's getting into the environmental air, because environmental air can pass through even the smallest cracks in a wall or electrical outlets and things like that. So, but we didn't used to get sick from that little bit of mold exposure because we had healthy, super vibrant microbiomes, because there weren't synthetics killing it all off. But now there are, and now people get all kinds of problems. Candida and mold are some of the most common, but there's also more virulent fungal infections that can occur, and also more virulent bacterial infections. People can get harmful bacterial and viral infections when their microbiome is unhealthy as well. So this is a major problem on the earth today. It's estimated that 90% of people in industrialized countries have some degree of a flora imbalance, also known as dysbiosis, where the microbiome has been destroyed and then the microbes that are harmful are growing there. And these microbes produce toxins. And these toxins are some of the most toxic chemicals on the planet, over 90 different types. And a lot of the times, people can start to get sick just from the toxins being produced in their body, even before they realize that there's basically an infection of microbes that aren't supposed to be growing there. And also, another thing is that it's not typically seen as a normal infection, because up until very recently, medical mainstream science has always been used to looking at bacterial and viral infections. They were more common, and they cause heavy fevers and all kinds of symptoms that these microbes, especially fungi, do not cause. You don't really commonly get really high fevers with fungal infections, even if they're invasive, unless they are so bad and so widespread you're about to die. And a lot of the time that's just from the excess mycotoxins, because fungi actually thrives in the heat. It doesn't get killed by the heat like bacteria and viruses do. And our bodies have this amazing intelligence that knows that. So anyway, so that's one caveat to it. But so people get these imbalances growing in their body, and then toxins being produced, and those toxins can affect them long before they even realize they have any types of microbes growing in their body that's not supposed to be there, because this knowledge still yet to this day, even though to me I've known about it for so long, since the 90s, But people still don't realize or know that they could have a microbial imbalance at the root of their problems. And so a lot of the time they'll just be affected by the toxins first, especially if the imbalance is in their gut and they're not really feeling it that much yet. And these toxins destroy neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are primarily produced in our gut. They make it so that our brain cells can communicate. Without enough neurotransmitters, our brain cells can't communicate well, and then we can't even process normal everyday stresses like anything that happens. And then people build up anxiety, depression, memory issues, brain fog, getting irritated easily, tired all the time, no energy. Things like this come about from having your neurotransmitters destroyed. The toxins can also cause cancer, ADHD, because you need neurotransmitters in order to concentrate. It's impossible to do that without enough neurotransmitters in your brain. And all kinds of problems, autism, even things like heart disease or high blood pressure. So many illnesses can be traced back to microbiome health. So flora consciousness is so essential in this day and age, and it's just by fate that I learned so much about it. And while these universities might be studying the different types of bacteria we have in our bodies and, naming them all and things like that and learning about that, what still in the whole world today is not as common of knowledge is how to heal from microbiome issues. And so I educate people on what works so that they can talk to their healthcare practitioners and they can have the guidance they need to actually get well quickly. Illness is not something you're supposed to make a lifestyle out of. It's supposed to be something that you hit as hard as you can with as much discipline as you have so you can get well as fast as possible and be done with it and live your best life with your optimal level of health. Too much I see people just adopting ways of life, just adapting to being sick and to not being their fullness. And I do not encourage that. I believe that most people can get well and put it in the past as quickly as possible. So that's what I share knowledge about from my experience and training, what works, especially also when it comes to diet. Because you cannot kill the harmful microbes like fungi and as well as some parasites if there is a food source they can feed off of. It's the craziest thing in the world. They'll just keep growing anyway. It won't even matter what you do to try to kill it. It could survive a nuclear holocaust. I swear to God, it really is like that. Because you can be hitting it with everything you got and you breathe in even or eat something it can feed off of, it'll just grow right back. And you have to clear it out before you can replant good bacteria and have good health again. So another endeavor that I offer to the world is flora-conscious cuisine, which I call Aya Foods. One day I would like to have a food line to where I can prepare flora-conscious foods and have them in stores for people to easily access, to make it easier for people to follow a flora-conscious diet. And there is no one exact diet for everybody. I created a 7 restriction phase diet. That way people can choose which restriction level they want based on the severity of their issues. And the 7th phase is actually free of all restriction, but it incorporates the knowledge of flora consciousness. So even when you're at your optimal health and you have a healthy microbiome, you can still be conscious and make choices that lead to the results of keeping a healthy microbiome. in this world where there's so many toxins we're exposed to all the time that we have no control over. Phases 1 to 3 are the least strict. 4, 5, and 6 are the most strict. 1 is pretty easy for anybody to do. Whenever I had dysbiosis in the past, I never had to restrict beyond phase 4 in order to get completely well. Phases 5 or 6 are for more life-threatening fungal infections. And so based on these principles, I use these 7 phases to create different foods. I could pretty much make anything you could possibly want to eat in a flora-conscious form up through phase 4, even desserts. Yes, sugar-free, fruit-free, and I don't use any xylitols or any sugar alcohols, nothing like that, but they still are delicious and taste sweet once your taste buds aren't so cracked out with all the sugar and stuff. But honestly, I have given children who are used to eating sugar and candy and things some of my phase 1 desserts, and they love them just the same. I had other people buying my phase 4 desserts from me, or rather granola that wasn't sweetened at all, and they loved it enough to buy it from me. So even if your taste buds haven't been deconditioned, you can still enjoy a lot of these things right away. And my specialty is in making desserts as well. I love making flora-conscious desserts because I love desserts, but I don't want to eat all the sugar and things that are going to affect my microbiome in a negative way. So that's what I love to do. And not only do I hope to get these foods more in stores one day to make it easier for people to access a flora-conscious diet, I'd also like to create some meal delivery services, maybe even a restaurant somewhere or a festival booth to sell food at. There's so many things that we could do. So this is something I'm looking for investors, people who would like to help make this a reality. But for now, I have some meal plans available on my website with over 30 recipes in each that you can download. And I'm working on a dessert preparation booklet, as well as other food preparation booklets. And everything is all vegan. And I have both raw plant food cuisine as well as cooked. So that is there to enjoy, and I have so much information to be sharing with you in this area. As you could tell, once I get started talking about it, that I've got so much to say. So I will be producing a lot of content in that regard here coming up in the future. My next endeavor, something that's very important to me and close to my heart because it's just so beautiful and it solves a problem that so many people around the planet has, and it just relieves suffering. It's like we need to relieve as much suffering on this planet as we can. There's too much of it going on all the time, and something that people always suffer from is broken hearts, getting into relationships and then having their heart broken. And the knowledge has been lost about how to build a strong foundation for a lasting relationship with a life partner. And Ma named me after the goddess of love. This is part of my life's work. It's just meant to be in conscious relationship building. And I call this work Family Foundations. And that's family with a PH, Family Foundations. You can find out more about it at familyfoundations.com. And that's foundations with an S, it's plural. Family Foundations. PH Family Foundations, plural. familyfoundations.com. So I am hoping to get this really launched and going by next year. I'm offering classes and programs, private consultations in how to build a lasting relationship with a life partner, how to build a strong foundation for a lasting relationship with a life partner, Because if you don't build a foundation for something, you can't wonder why when it all falls in on you. And that's what happens in this day and age. People jump into things without building a foundation first, and they wonder why the walls are falling in on them. But you have to have that foundation. And this is based on nature. This is based on nature's patterns. Through the principles that I've learned through traditional Chinese medicine, Antar yoga, and neurobiology. That's what it's based on. I have developed a 7-step process for building a strong foundation for a lasting relationship with a life partner. And I have a page on my website that explains the science behind it all. So if you would like to learn more and how it works, I encourage you to go to my website at familyfoundations.com. Another work close to my heart is that I have published a book called Wisdom. It's a reference book of King Solomon's Proverbs for a unified community. When I started studying King Solomon's Proverbs, I was just so struck by the beneficial things I was reading that can be used to create strong communities and healthy and prosperous individual lives as well. So I compiled all of King Solomon's Proverbs into a reference book with 150 subjects. So you can look up each one of the Proverbs for each subject alphabetically. In the book of Proverbs, they're scattered all throughout. So this book that I produced has them organized into their different subject matter. And you can find out more about that at wisdomfromkingsolomon.com. Next, another endeavor, something very close to my heart, like they all are. This was my first love, music. I produce spiritual roots music, going by Katyayani and the Arrows of Light when with a full band. You can find out more about that and hear more of my music if you go to thestrongfoundation.com/soul, SOUL. Next, I have a nonprofit endeavor called Natural People's Rights. I created this in 2020 because I believe that everyone has the right to live as a natural person by a natural lifestyle if they choose to, without being discriminated against. Whether they choose natural medicine, natural immunity, natural hair, natural childbirth, natural education, whatever the case may be, we have the right to remain in our natural state without being discriminated against, and to choose a natural lifestyle, and to choose natural things, and to want to be close to the earth, and to just be the natural people we were born as without altering ourselves in any way. I have coined the word meso-naturalism to refer to the bigotry of when people are discriminated against because of their natural lifestyle choices. And that doesn't mean that someone's every choice has to be natural in order for the choices they do make that are natural to be protected. Everyone should be allowed to be who they are without discrimination. So through Natural People's Rights, I stand up to the bigotry of meso-naturalism and stand up for the right to be natural and free. So you can learn more about this at thestrongfoundation.com/natural people's rights. Next, my newest endeavor, the Center for Medical Integrity, and my Narcissistic Medical Abuse Accountability podcast. This was inspired by experiences I have had, and I have heard countless other people have, trying to get medical care, no matter where they live. It has become as common as getting yourself weighed in and your blood pressure taken at a doctor to be gaslit and abused. This is not right. Gaslighting is psychological abuse. I think it's maybe 1 in 100,000 people, I can't remember exactly the exact statistic, but not very many people actually have delusional disorder. So a doctor should not be treating 90% of their patients, or 10% even, like they have a delusional disorder and are imagining their symptoms. This is wrong. Personally, I prefer natural medicine, and I know how to treat myself for most things, but something can always happen to where either A, what you're dealing with is so much more serious and severe than something you can just go to the health food store and buy some simple herbs for. And that doesn't mean that it can't be treated naturally, but there are some natural treatments that are required. There are hundreds of thousands of dollars for very, very serious issues like IV ozone therapy, which is only $1,000 a treatment. Well, I say only because it's not $100,000, right? But if you need that treatment every day for months, then that's hundreds of thousands of dollars, plus hyperbaric oxygen, plus the supplements and doctor's visits, and just there's so much. So sometimes people don't have the money to do what's required naturally, and then they have to resort to seeing a doctor no matter how much knowledge they have. And then there's structural medicine too, where that's something that allopathic medicine is really good at. If your bones break, they can put them back together, things like that. But still, people get gaslit for things. Someone very close to me that I love got injured on a roller coaster ride and dislocated her sternum. She went to hospital after hospital for 2 weeks, and they just gaslighted her again and again until it got so bad that the dislocated joint became infected and swelled up so bad that she had to be hospitalized for a month, almost died, and had to have 4 surgeries to have parts of her body removed because they didn't listen to her in the first place. So even if you know how to treat illnesses, but you might not know how to reset a dislocated sternum and you go to the hospital for help, you shouldn't be getting gaslighted. Like, psychological abuse should not be something that people have to fear facing if they have to see a doctor or any kind of healer. Even naturopaths treat people that way, even if they practice natural medicine. Practicing natural medicine does not make you immune to being someone who gaslights other people. So this is very important. People deserve proper treatment. And so with the Center for Medical Integrity has 2 goals, 2 missions. First, to educate people, healthcare practitioners of all kinds of healthcare professionals, healthcare centers, and anyone and everyone having anything to do with that, educate them on what gaslighting is, that gaslighting is psychological abuse, and have them uphold policies to where this is not allowed, completely unacceptable, or they don't get to have a job, whatever the case may be. But doctors and healthcare professionals need to be held accountable for this. This is unacceptable. It is absolutely unacceptable to the degree it's going on all the time. It's not just a few bad apples in the bunch, the whole freaking bushel is rotten, and it's hard to find an apple that's not rotten. It really is. So it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. At least there is telemedicine now, so at least you can find someone in the world that is good if you just keep looking. But it was much harder even when you need someone who's right around you. There might not be anyone around you who doesn't abuse you and who is also a doctor. It's the reality. It's the reality. And the second goal and mission of the Center for Medical Integrity is to inspire, if not require, doctors, healthcare centers, everyone like that, to use the scientific method when drawing conclusions. Now, I'm not talking about a doctor is supposed to go and do a whole new clinical trial on some thought or something to be done. That's not what I mean by that. I just mean the process that goes on in their brains when they are evaluating a patient. Meaning, they should not jump to conclusions based on their own personal prejudices and have that be the dominating way that they think about things. Because from my experience, that is the dominating way they think about things right now, especially if they're doctors that see patients every 20 minutes or something and they don't have time to really attend to people. What they need to do is, when, like, say a patient says, I have these symptoms, instead of saying, oh, well, that's probably nothing, like they're a doctor, they're not supposed to do that. Then they should say, okay, well, let's collect evidence. Let's examine the evidence, and then let's draw the conclusion. And that doesn't just mean let's do blood tests, and if the blood tests are all okay, you must be imagining things. No. There is this thing that people have in their bodies. I don't know if a lot of doctors learn this in medical school. It's called nerve endings. Have you ever heard of that? Like, our bodies have nerves. Like, we can actually feel what's going on in and around our bodies. Isn't that crazy? Like, who would have ever thought? So if someone's in pain, they're probably not imagining it. So that means that the right test wasn't done. Or maybe there's not a test for it. Maybe rather than literally letting people die or even just suffer, you should try the treatment for what it most likely is, even if you don't get a positive test, and see if it freaking works. I want to give an example real quick of a poor woman I connected with on social media once. Her husband, or not her husband, but her fiance, they were engaged to get married, had a damaged microbiome, was exposed to mold, it got in his lungs and started growing in his lungs. He went to the hospital, he was in the hospital, they admitted him, he was very sick. Both he and his fiance knew that it was mold. Because when you are present for something and you experience it and you have a brain and you can think and you can deduce things, you don't always need a blood test to be able to be like, oh, I was exposed to mold, now my lungs are bad, blah, blah, blah. You can tell, right? So they tried to tell the doctors, this is mold, he has mold in his lungs. They did every test they could. Sputum, I don't know if they did a biopsy. Hopefully, she said they did every single test they had, and they kept saying it was not mold. And they refused to give him antifungals. And they literally let him lay in that hospital bed and die. But then guess what? You know how it was confirmed that they were right? And it was mold in his lungs that gave him pneumonia and killed him. He even had pneumonia in his lungs from the mold, and they could not detect it. until his autopsy. After he died, they did an autopsy and it was confirmed the exact strain of mold that had given him pneumonia and killed him. So especially when it comes to fungi, it's not like bacteria and viruses. It doesn't just float around. It can probably be in some parts of your lungs and sputum, and then in other parts not. I don't know. All I know is that tests for this type of stuff doesn't always work, so you can't depend on that. Live cell dark field microscopy is supposed to be the best, but I don't have experience with it. I've just read that. So, and it's not something that's commonly done at hospitals either, so I doubt that they had that done. But anyway, this is another thing I'm very passionate about and I want to expose. I would like to make doctors think twice before haphazardly gaslighting and abusing their patients, because gaslighting is psychological abuse. So at some point, I'm going to be launching the Narcissistic Medical Abuse Accountability Podcast, where I will be interviewing people who have experienced this so they can share their stories, because they are way too common. And I look forward to utilizing that and the Center for Medical Integrity to make things better for everyone. So I have a lot of other works in the process coming up in the future, but this is what I am offering to the world right now. And thank you for listening to my introduction for each of these things I do. I have a lot of thoughts and a lot to share in all of these areas that I'm going to be sharing over time. And I didn't mention my website for some of these, so let me tell you, if you'd like to learn more about flora-consciousness or Aya Foods, you can go to flora-consciousness.com or ayafoods.com. That's IAH foods.com. I almost forgot, and this is something very important. How could I forget? Another offering is my work in classical feng shui and eco-regenerative design. I call this Soul Whisper Consulting. I am a professionally certified classical feng shui practitioner. I graduated from Golden Gate School of Feng Shui in 2009 after a year-long 260-hour program. I also worked at the school for 2.5 years as the program coordinator. So I was always helping to prepare for the courses and prepare students and help teachers. So I kind of got to take the program more than once in a way. Always exposed to it, always immersing myself in it for 2.5 years. I learned so much. Classical feng shui is one of the 8 rays of traditional Chinese medicine. So that's where my background in traditional Chinese medicine comes from. And I've utilized that in some of my other works as well, like family foundations and flora-consciousness as well. Lots of things that I do. And I also, besides classical feng shui consultations and eco-regenerative design, I also do pole star astrology readings, which is also one of the 8 rays of traditional Chinese medicine. I am a student of Lu Ming, who was a teacher at the school. He learned pole star astrology from his family that had passed it down generation after generation over thousands of years. It used to only be taught to family members. And it is just amazing. It's one of the more rare forms of astrology. It's not something you can just go look up online and find out about. Unless you speak Chinese, you can create a chart if you speak Chinese. But for interpreting it is another matter. Stems and branches astrology is the more common form of Chinese astrology, the animal archetypes, and we do utilize that a bit. But pole star astrology goes even further. You could see so much about how the elements that you were made up of based on the point in time and what was going on in nature's cycles at the point of time you were expressed into the world. So it's very, very interesting. It's something I love to do. And you can find out about that and everything else having to do with that, including space clearing, date selection, color selection, Mingwa readings, which has to do with the most auspicious directions for you to orient your body in according to how your energy field interacts with that of the Earth's, and elemental pranic readings, kind of utilizing those same principles. So you can find out more about that at soulwhisperconsulting.com. And lastly, if you want to learn more about the Center for Medical Integrity and my Narcissistic Medical Abuse Accountability podcast, you can go to thestrongfoundation.com/Center for Medical Integrity. And you can find all of these in the same place at thestrongfoundation.com. You'll find links for everything there. So I look forward to sharing more each and every day. Thank you for being here. Be good. Be one. One love, one heart, unity, and strength.